What's going on, Illumineers, and welcome back to the madness. Today's video, we're looking at DeCandio song. We're looking at the deck that DeCandio took to the CCS 10K and took away the win. And it's interesting, to say the least. I've played a couple games with it now. I've played about 15 to 20 games with it now. Nowhere near DeCandio's 150 that he's played, but I have some ideas. First off, I'm going to put it right out there. This is more of a vlog for myself because DeCandio has already said that he's going to be making his own video on how to pilot this deck. He's already said that it'll probably be coming out later this week or next week, and it's going to be there. So I'm kind of making this to kind of talk through some of what I'm doing while I'm playing it, and then to see how close I am to what DeCandio is doing, just without the experience that DeCandio has. Just kind of curious, do I have the lines right? And then also to, until it gets there, maybe somewhere for you guys to go with as well. Before we start, I was playing SteelSong for all of, or the Ursula set champs. I won myself a couple mats, a bunch of Ursulas. So I didn't just pick up SteelSong today. I have been playing it for a little bit. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with looking at SteelSong. So a lot of you have already seen the list. You've probably already seen people posting about it. So I'm not going to bore you to death because you already have most of the highlights, right? The big highlights being that DeCandio ran in here with 3 lanterns. And the lantern, you tap it, you pay 1 less for the next character you play this turn. He's running 3 of those. And then we saw him come in with the 4 Naveen's. We saw him come in with the 3 Cinderellas. All right. Now, and I think it's also important for Pete's as well. Now, this is really important because there's been a lot of arguments about or debate on Naveen in general. A lot of people talking about don't run any at all. A lot of people talking about max of 2. And then you see DeCandio coming in here, and he made a super bold statement on Twitter that if you're not running 4 Naveens, then you are wrong. And I've got to admit, I've started running 4 Naveens while I'm running his deck, and 4 Naveens feels really, really good. Now, there's some things you have to look out for, right? In this deck, he's running 18 uninkables. Now, with Lantern, it's 3 uninkables, but it's helping you reduce that because if you get stuck on 3 ink, that's not the end of the world because on 3 ink, if you have just 1 lantern down, you can still do the majority of your deck. And most of the time, like that's going to be okay. When we saw things like Bivens song being really popular with the double shift lines, there were games that unless you see a whole new world, you never go above 3 ink because you never needed to. If you had a Rapunzel in hand, maybe then you would do a 4th ink to play Rapunzel. But so it's important to realize that as a SteelSong player, you don't need a whole lot of ink. You're not going to go for a whole lot of ink unless you're seeing whole new worlds because you're inking resources. You're inking cards that are going to be really important. Now, I got this up here because I think it's a good display. So we'll get my face out of the way. I think it's really important. I keep saying DeCandio. I'm gonna put DeCandio's YouTube link down in the description. So please go check him out, guys. His video is coming. Phenomenal player. He just posted some meta deck lists. He just finished, or he did a whole set review, things like that. So go check him out. But this is what we're looking at. Now, a lot of people are really against this because a lot of people have been really high on Daisy and saying Daisy's the way to go and do this big aggro thing. And where that is, you have to understand a lot of Lorcana comes down to play style, right? If you want to go Daisy on 1 and then Ursula on 2 or Piglet on 2, you can go that full aggro line. But if you go the full aggro line of Daisy into Piglet into Smee or Pete, you have to understand that you're close to just losing the game, much like hyper aggro Yellow Amethyst is. And those are things you have to worry about. Now, that's what you have to look at, though, is play style. DeCandio's list here is not the only SteelSong list. It is by far not the only SteelSong list. Harps are still very viable. Daisies are still very viable. Flutes are still very viable. SteelSong can now just go in a whole bunch of different directions. and that's not a bad thing. But what are we looking at with this in particular? Now, one thing that SteelSong's always excelled at is being able to go super explosive. And we saw that with queens is when you played the double queen shift line, you could go queen on 1 and then queen on 2 and then seeing a whole new world on turn 2. But the problem with doing that is that now you have a shifted queen. So if on turn 1 they played a Rafiki or anything like that, or if you're on the draw and they played a Smee on turn 2, all of a sudden you can't really do the whole new world play because your queen just dies. So now that play is shut off. So with this though, what a huge, massive, explosive play is you can go Cindy on 1, and then you can go Lantern on 2, and then you can go Naveen on 3. And with Naveen on 3, you have the option to go explosive with the whole new world. And if you're on the play, that is going to decimate a lot of that is going to decimate just a lot of people because they're trying to get that optimal hand, and the optimal hand is normally getting rid of uninkables. I'm looking at Ruby Amethyst, I'm looking at Blue Steel, I'm looking at Ruby Sapphire. All of those decks that have high uninkable counts that they're trying to put back into their deck because they need to play an early game. So that is a massive, massive play because now you go Cindy on 1, Lantern on 2, Naveen on 3. Naveen doesn't tap. He doesn't exert. He stays where he can't be challenged. So now you have a Singer 6 on turn 3 that quests for 2. And also when you hold New World, you have Cinderella to possibly answer anything they played on turn 1 because you hold New World most likely into Strength of a Raging Fire or Let the Storm Rage on. And that is massive because now the board is yours. Now let's look at the most difficult matchup for SteelSong. Well, the most difficult matchup for SteelSong, other than itself, is the mirror. Now, back up to other than itself. Before you jump into SteelSong, you have to understand that SteelSong often loses to itself. You like this deck is running 18 uninkables, and before we were running lanterns in set 4, those of us that were running flutes, we were running 18 or 19. The one that I used to win my set champs to go big in the case tournament recently, I ran flutes and Baloo, so I was running 19 uninkables. Now, you have to understand that when you run that money on inkables without things like Tippo or Fishbone Quill, you're stuck with those in your hand until you see a whole new world. So it's very popular to hear things like SteelSong will often beat itself. But looking at the other matchups, the SteelSong mirror is incredibly difficult, and it used to be this idea of if you don't go first, you lose. Well, now we have way more options because what you can do now is you have multiple plays going into your turn 2. So turn 1, you ink and skip. That's it. Unless you have something super crazy in your hand, you don't waste your time playing. If you're on the draw and they play a Cindy, then you don't play a 1-drop. You just don't do it. All right. You don't play a 1-drop. All right. Now, the only time that you can possibly get away with that is if you want to go a 1-drop into their Cindy and force them to have a Let the Storm Rage on or a Strength of a Raging Fire. And you might do that only because your turn 2 is going to be Lantern into Prince Naveen on turn 3 in Whole New World. Because now you're doing the Cindy or Robin Hood and saying, hey, answer this or else. And that could be big, but unless you have like the Naveen into the Whole New World, typically that's not a play you're gonna do. You're just gonna ink, you're gonna pass, you're gonna move on. Now turn 2 is where things get super spicy because turn 2, now if you can go Lantern, which can be really strong, or you can, if you don't have Lantern, you can go Ursula. So now you have 2 options going into turn 2, whereas before you didn't really have any. Your turn 2 play was typically going to be something like maybe 2 Robin Hoods, a Cindy and a Robin Hood. If you're running the double shift line, you could go a Queen and a Robin Hood and make them choose which one. But now you're going either Ursula or Lantern and saying, hey, I have an Ursula now, and if they don't play an Ursula on turn 2, which a lot of your aggro songs aren't, then now you have the ability to play Zeus. And even if they play Ursula, they might not have a Zeus of their own. So you have the ability to play Zeus, which can be massive to getting you back in the game. But let's say you do have what I think is DeCandio's just crazy baller high roll play of Lantern on 2, Prince Naveen on 3. Now that can be big. And you might not even go whole new world. If you don't have Cindy that's stuck, you might just go Zeus. You might go Lantern into Prince Naveen into a Zeus to take out maybe their Ariel, to take out maybe their Ursula, whatever it may be, and that can be massive. Because now though, and this deck gets so exciting, because the Prince Naveen and Pete's have shown us that on the draw isn't just a wash anymore. Because another thing you could do is you could just go Ursula on 2, you can go Pete on 3, and now they can't even sing to take out your characters. So if they don't take out Ursula on turn 2, on their turn 3, now in your turn 3, you get an Ursula that can sing 4, and you play Pete, so next turn they can't take out anything. Then you can go into Prince Naveen, maybe you sing a whole new world, because now you have an Ursula and you have a Pete, both of which can sing. So your odds of doing a whole new world into a Zeus, into a Strength of a Raging Fire, are going to be really good, because your Strength of a Raging Fire can be sang by both of these while you're already having 3 characters down. And if you look at the health on all of these early characters besides Ursula, they're not, your Strength of a Raging Fire takes them all out. So next thing you know, you have an Ursula, a Pete, and a Prince Naveen on the field, and now they can't do anything about it. They're done. Unless they run a double grab your swords, then there's nothing they can do. But at this point, they can't sing double grab your swords anyways. So maybe they play one grab your swords and then hoping for the next turn to play another grab your swords. Well, awesome, because now you get to heal with Rapunzel before they use your second one. So those are just a couple lines that you have. Now let's talk. The other great line in here is maybe you get your hand, you whole new world, you have these lanterns. You can play Cindy, and if you have like 2 lanterns down, you can play Cinderella as early as turn 4. And that's with 1 lantern, because you go Cinderella on 1, and then turn 2, you play a card in ink. So now you have 2 ink, and then turn 3, or turn 2 or turn 3, you've played lantern, you've inked. So going into turn 4, you ink again, tap the lantern, and now you have a Cinderella on the field going on turn 4 that can hit into anything. You have a 5/5 with resist +2, or better yet, it can quest for 3. This is huge. This is just massive. Now, and that's going to be a huge swing into anything, because if you look at your Ruby Amethyst, they have nothing, absolutely nothing that can handle a Cinderella on turn 4. They can crab and fox later on, but they have to have the crab on the field already, because they don't have the ink yet. Now, Blurple will have an easier time handling this, because they might have ramped already to get to that point, or the Hades. But Ruby Amethyst, they're just dead in the water. There's nothing they can do until turn 7 when they play B prep. And at that point, if you've already quested for 3, 6, 9 with Cinderella, then their B prep is all but useless at that point, because you're probably already getting to another whole new world, setting up piglets, all of this fun, phenomenal stuff. So you can play Cinderella on turn 4. The point is that lanterns just offer so many opportunities for you to do all of these different plays. So DeCandio's list it's exciting. I have some gameplay that I'll show off later, but I just wanted to highlight some of the lines that you guys have the ability to play. And I know this was fast. I'm excited to share DeCandio's list. I'm excited to see how far off I am from what he thinks is the way to go. But again, everybody, I'm going to link his YouTube channel down below, so definitely go check him out. Show him some love. Check out his meta lists, because those were super good as well. But with that, I'll sign off as I always do. Remember, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about DeCandio's list, or if you're going another direction. I'm going to have some gameplay videos of DeCandio's list, as well as gameplay videos of the list that I will most likely be running. That includes daisies, but I'm also going to highlight some flute play and some spicy stuff, because SteelSong's all over the place, right? We have to figure out, how do we beat the mirror? How do we beat red blue? And the rest, we're going to be okay. So remember, drink your water, do your push-ups. All we're trying to do is stay happy and healthy. When we can stay happy and healthy, I promise you that those words go together and you'll get to enjoy everything else that you do. So whatever healthy is for you, make it work, make it happen, and I promise things will be good. So with that, I'm out. Until next time.